That was indeed a fun one last night. Now it's getting us ready for the series to start in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Back here with Joe and Erin, a public service announcement for our bettors out there as it pertains to the NBA playoffs. Some do's and don'ts, if you will, to share with our people. So, Erin, what is something you encourage bettors to do in the NBA playoffs?
Identify one person that loves to zigzag. So last season we had talked about this multiple times on the show with Anthony Davis. He's all over the map in terms of the postseason. Look at this. You know how many times we showed this? After each and every game. So if you zigzag a little bit and fade them in different spots, it's the same thing with Max Strus and his made threes. Somebody actually in the hallway was like, remember last season, Max Strus went over, then under, then over, then under? Yep, it worked. So identify some of these guys. It's not going to happen with every guy, though.
Yeah, you can take the zigzag. You can apply it to totals as well and sides. For those who are unfamiliar with what it is, you're basically betting against what happened in the game before because it's the two opponents going against each other for as many as 7 games in a row. So here's a perfect example. Go back to last year's NBA Finals, Game 1 between the Nuggets and the Heat. Denver's hosting. Total closes 218.5. We get 197 points scored because both teams had an off shooting night. They combined to shoot 31% from deep. 197 points goes well under the total. Look at what happens in Game 2. The books adjust. They drop the total. Both teams coming off awful shooting nights combined to have a much better shooting night, dropping 44% from deep, and it goes over the total. Anyone want to guess what happened in Game 3? After shooting 44% from three-point range in Game 2, you had an adjustment to the total. Once again, the shooting fell off, and you got an under. So it's not just as simple as betting against whatever happened the game before. You have to look at the averages, and if the averages are far off the norm, a great shooting night or an off shooting night, that's when you take advantage of the regression and you zig and you zag.
All right, well done, the two of you, but there's another side to this coin. Erin, I'll start with you again. What's something you don't want our bettors doing this postseason?
Don't unload in Game 1. I mean, these playing games are not.
Come on, that's
I'm just saying, keep your money in your pocket just a little bit. Don't want to lose it all in the first game. It's going to be difficult to recoup. But reason being is you have to see how these teams match up because, like I mentioned earlier in the show, going back to the regular season, while yes, you can draw some conclusions for that, I feel like the postseason is just a totally different ball game, different atmosphere, and also they're finding different ways to adjust. So maybe a big-time player, like an example last night, Joel Embiid, he might not be there in terms of his points, but the team still got the win. Their goal is to just win these games by any means necessary. So don't unload in the first game, see how they match up.
Be careful of some classic pitfalls. There are some trends out there that can be applicable. Game 7s tend to go under, things of that nature. One I like to look at is what's going to happen in Game 3 after a team goes up 2-0 at home, right? You'd see a team blow somebody out in Game 1, they blow them out in Game 2, now they're going to travel for Game 3. A lot of people are thinking this series is over. Don't get caught betting that team in Game 3, specifically in the first half. So that's the don't. We kind of want to flip this to the do. Do bet the team in the first half if they're down 0-2 coming home, right? You just look bad in 2 games on the road, but as we always hear, series doesn't start until a team wins a road game. So you're coming home, you're riding the crowd noise, role players play better at home, but you're valued as a team that's just lost 2 games. So if you're down 0-2 and you're coming home for Game 3, very popular way to bet that, first half wager. Team comes out firing, fighting for their playoff lives. First to 10, first to 5, first to the arena.
To the series prices we are seeing, now still some to be determined, the 1 seeds, who they're going to be playing, but we do have 6 series set on paper, and it could be one of the most competitive first rounds we've ever seen in the NBA playoffs. 5 favorites are minus 200 or less, the most in any round 1 in more than 35 years. Only 2 of the 6 teams with home court advantage, guys, are favored in these round 1 matchups, which would also be the fewest in any first round in that span, according to sports odds history. So now that we have the do's and the don'ts out of the way, let's handicap these series, starting and focusing in the West. I see Suns and T-Wolves there. Erin, how are you playing it?
Well, the public's really liking the Suns, especially in terms of tickets and money count, but I'm going to go with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and it's a lean. I think this can absolutely go the distance, but it's strength on strength in ways. We know Minnesota's defense is really good, but we also know when the big 3 is on the court for the Suns, they're second in offensive rating. So it's really about who's going to be showing up. But I think Karl Anthony Towns being back on the team does help the Minnesota Timberwolves. I like what I've seen from Anthony Edwards as well. So I just think that the Suns, although they have the big names, I totally understand that. It's not like they're going to lose every single game. I feel like Minnesota might pull away in this one.
So the narrative in favor of the Suns for this series is that they are a huge matchup problem for Minnesota, right? I see where you're coming from. Minnesota has a great defense. Minnesota has home court here. If you're going to play the Suns, I think the best approach is to say, all right, if you really are a matchup problem, you should handle your business. Let's go ahead and lay 1.5 games, and let's get some plus money coming back. Because I don't see a scenario where you're going to win 4-3 if you're that big of a matchup problem, right? You can win 4-3, no doubt, but that's the big thing here. We just saw them play each other at the end of the season. Phoenix caused a huge problem for him. Phoenix has caused a huge problem for him nonstop. We hear all about the rim protection on behalf of Rudy Gobert. These aren't guys that go to the rim. They love the mid-range and they like taking threes. They're not attacking the rim, so it kind of plays against what makes Minnesota such a great defense. So if you're going to play the matchup, go ahead and get yourself some plus money there. Lay the 1.5 with Phoenix.
All right, better ROI going in on Phoenix if you like that. All right. Saturday, game 1 in the Mile High City. The Lakers is the 7 seed taking on the defending champion Nuggets. Erin, what would you be advising here?
I mean, the line keeps moving in favor of the Nuggets. I can't tell you to bet it at minus 400, but I will say 76% of the tickets, 67% of the money is coming in on the Lakers. So maybe some people think they have a shot in this one despite the line going the opposite way. So then I can't advise you to take minus 400. Then you look at the series price, minus 1.5. That's at minus 160. I also feel bad telling you to do that. This is one of those series I would just bet game to game. I do believe the Nuggets will win the first 2 at home. I also think there's a potential they could sweep the Lakers. They've owned them. They've won 8 straight. We don't need to go into every single stat, but I also don't trust that the Lakers are healthy enough to go against this Denver squad.
I think Denver jumps all over them in game 1. I'd play them in the first half. You're laying like 3.5 there. I think you got the altitude situation. The Lakers had a big week just to get into this thing. Denver's nice and rested. They're ready to fire. They're a veteran team, ready to defend the title. They're deep. They're well balanced. They're tough to beat at home. I think they jump all over the Lakers, so I'd play the first half. For the series, I'd lay 2.5 games here. I think Denver finds a way as a big favorite in game 1 and game 2 to go up 2-0. And then essentially what we need, go back to LA, find a way to win one of those games, and then come back and close it out in game 5.
I like that.
That one going to be fun to watch if LeBron and the Lakers can keep it close, which they have not done, Erin. You pointed out the Nuggets have been a matchup.
I'm all for a close series.
I think this is one
More basketball, the better.
This is one where that's most likely to go 7 games. Now, again, Luka and the Mavs, they're the 5 seeded, and they're the favorite over the Clippers, Kawhi, Paul George, Russ Westbrook, etc. Erin, what are you saying here?
The public loves Dallas. It's hard to make a case against them, but I'll side with the Clippers here, maybe in a game 7. But don't hold me to this one, because if it comes game 7 and I have to pick Dallas and handicap it a certain way. But the Clippers, I mean, the offense is there, the defense is there. The Dallas Mavericks have looked better since the trade deadline. I'll give them that. Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, I mean, they're looking great together as a duo. But I feel like the Clippers are going to win it. And this might be more of a gut play than anything, but it's going to go down to the wire for sure.
I just think the price presents a nice opportunity with the Clippers. It's plus 120. They're the home team, so if it goes 7, they got 4 games at home. Ty Lue said he expects Kawhi Leonard to play in game 1. We don't know what capabilities he'll be at, but if he's anywhere close to being effective in this series, it's going to be tough for Dallas. People are caught up in how well Dallas played down the stretch, 16-4 over the last 20. They beat up on a lot of bad teams. They beat up on Utah twice, Houston twice, Detroit, Charlotte, Chicago, San Antonio, Atlanta. They beat the Heat twice. They beat the Kings twice. 13 of those 16 wins are against teams that either missed the playoffs or against teams that got in as play-in teams and aren't very good to begin with.
Let me throw something that's just wild to you. At ESPN Bet Live, the 2 favorites to win the NBA title are Boston and Denver, right? What teams are 3 and 4?
I'm sure you'll reveal.
The Clippers and the Mavericks.
The Clippers
and the Mavericks are 3 and 4 in the overall NBA title odds. One of them is going to get knocked out right here. I mean, we know the Nuggets and the Celtics, they're the cream of the crop, but I find it interesting that the next set of teams with the lowest odds to win it all, the Clippers and the Mavericks. I think the Mavericks with Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is going to win an NBA championship at some point in his career. He's just too damn good.
I don't think that.
You don't think that? Why is that?
I mean, look at his team compared to everyone else in the West. Luka he could go out and put in 70 points and still lose.
Man, this guy has been winning.
They can't put the right pieces around him to be able to win.
I think they made some adjustments to the roster this year at the trade deadline that allowed them to play great defense. Joe, you pointed out it was against some bad teams. But they were also 16-4 against the spread against those bad teams. And it's not like they were the underdog in those games. They were exceeding expectation down the stretch. And the point you showed on the graphic earlier this week, they had the best defensive rating. That also accounts for the opponent. It's a per possession metric. So I think there is now a good team around Luka. And this guy's been winning championships since he was like 14, 15, 16 years old over in Europe.
Incredible disrespect for Oklahoma City in the pricing, because I don't know if anyone's realized they're going to get either a banged-up Pelicans team or a banged-up Kings team. Like, that could be a 5-game series where OKC goes right into the second round and faces someone coming off a monster opening round series.
the 1 seed. 15-1 to win it all. Again, behind in the Western Conference, Denver, LA Clippers, and the Dallas Mavericks. Heat, unfortunately, likely without Jimmy Butler, who's expected to miss several weeks with a right MCL injury he suffered in that game last night. Sources telling our NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski. Butler suffered the injury in the first quarter, but was able to finish the game, played 39 minutes. Now is not going to be able to go any farther for quite some time. The Heat, though, still a 1.5-point favorite against the Bulls, even without playoff Jimmy. Teams split before regular season meetings, but the Bulls were 3-1 against the spread in those 4 matchups. The winner, as I said, going to be the biggest first-round underdog taking on the Celtics. So, Erin, how is the Jimmy Butler potential absence, affecting your handicap?
This is tough. It's very tough because the Chicago Bulls are just not a good team. But then if you take Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets, playoff Jimmy out of the equation, I mean, it's hard to back the Heat as well. But I am going to back the Heat in the first half. They've been 7-3 against the number in their last 10 games in the first half. We saw what they were able to do against Philadelphia. They jumped out on that squad. And also, it was like turnover after turnover for Philly. They were stealing the ball left and right. So I do think that they have a shot against a rather mediocre Chicago Bulls team, at least in the first half. Like, I think maybe, let's say Jimmy Butler is not playing and they just come with some type of energy, like they're angry and they want to try to win this game. But, I mean, man, their road ahead looming. Maybe in the second half, you're like, I don't want to face the Celtics for 7 more games potentially, even though it'll probably be 4. But
here's the problem with the Heat. You just lost Jimmy Butler. You were in the finals last year. Your aspirations this season were to win a championship. He's out several weeks. And now you got to deal with the play-in. You just lost to the Sixers. How motivated is Miami to show up for this? Because there's a lot of motivation. 48 minutes from the start of that game, you're on vacation. I mean, how far are you going to go without Butler, especially in a matchup with the Celtics? I worry about the motivation. I'm surprised Miami's the favorite, only because the Bulls have struggled this year and they're coming off a red-hot shooting night, so they might struggle a bit. But I think if Chicago jumps on them early in this game, Miami, it's 1-2-3 Cancun. They know that they're not going to get past the Celtics without Jimmy Butler. They can try and fight all they want. I think the motivation is going to be absolutely dead.
I disagree with that. This is the Miami Heat. Heat culture, you can say that is, clicky, cliche, whatever, but it's real. This is a team that was the 8 seed last year and made it to the NBA Finals.
With Jimmy Butler being great, though.
100%. But motivation for an Eric Spoelstra, Pat Riley-led culture, I'm going to believe they're going to show up and give their all. If this was, say, maybe like the New Orleans Pelicans, where Zion Williamson's your guy and it's a young group, okay, I believe a little bit more than that. But the Miami Heat, I trust. Even if they know they're going to get waxed by the Boston Celtics, they're going to take all those punches because they want to show they care more. I don't worry about the motivation. I also want, the Bulls are going to get credit for beating the team that had the worst cover rate in the NBA the last decade. They didn't prove to me anything by beating the Atlanta Hawks last night.
No, it's not about them. It's just about whether or not Miami chooses to show up. There's no pro-Bull argument where they're going to come in and play great basketball. They're bottom half of the league in offensive efficiency. They're bottom half in defensive efficiency. They shot the lights out against Atlanta. That's probably coming down. They want to play. That's the one thing with them. They want to play and they smell blood in the water. Terry Rozier's banged up too. You got injuries up and down the Miami lineup.
And
it's
Robinson
easy
on top of that.
to start looking at 48 minutes and think to yourself, we are on vacation. We went to the finals last year. Remember, the year after the finals in the bubble wasn't a great follow-up season. They're out of gas.
If Jimmy Butler was healthy and that didn't happen last night, it'd be a totally different conversation because I think they could play the Celtics somewhat tough.
Yeah, I mean.
But you take him out, I just don't.
Doesn't scare me. Call me a believer in Spoelstra and what they've done there, but a Bulls team who I don't think is very good. I think Miami can take care of them, get that 8 seed, and then get promptly bounced without Jimmy Butler by the Boston Celtics. All right, one more play-in game out west as well. The Pelicans dealing with an injury to their superstar. Zion Williamson has been ruled out tomorrow's game against the Kings with a left hamstring injury. The Kings then, they're a 1.5-point favorite in New Orleans tomorrow night after opening as a 1.5-point dog. These teams met 5 times during the regular season. The Pelicans won all 5 of those games. And like this one, they were an underdog in all 5 of those games. The total, check this out, guys, has plummeted 6 points since opening and 2 points from the time we talked about it on yesterday's show. So, Erin, I'll start with you. It's kind of the same question with Zion out of the picture. What are you advising here?
I would take the Kings on the money line. I don't feel too comfortable in this spot. I know Joe made a lot of great points yesterday when talking about this, about the motivation. How are they going to look? Again, vacation looming, things like that. I mean, Zion's such a big piece, and I don't really feel comfortable with some of these other guys. I mean, Brandon Ingram, what's going on with him? You got to score more than 12 points, especially when your team's coming down trying to win these games. So I feel more confident in the Kings, especially with what they just did against the Golden State Warriors. I mean, we expected the Warriors to beat them handily, and That was not the case whatsoever, so I do like the Kings on the money line. I wouldn't mess around with the spread.
I'm having a hard time with the idea that we just saw Sacramento at home without Monk and without Herter, and they're catching 2.5 from a 10 seed.
Yeah.
Now they're going to go on the road a couple nights later to take on a better team, albeit without Zion, but still a better team than the Warriors, and they're going to lay 1.5. And that feels like too big of an adjustment based on what happened with Zion. I mean, you look at Brandon Ingram shot 33% in that last game against the Lakers. That's his 4th worst performance in 65 games this season. What's the likelihood that happens again? CJ McCollum shot 26% in that game against the Lakers. That's his 3rd worst performance in 64 games this season. And oh, by the way, the Kings were white hot from deep against the Warriors, shooting 46%. So are you going to carry that shooting performance over to New Orleans when you're on the road? I don't think so. Are the Pelicans going to be as bad as they were in the last game? I don't think so. And when you factor all that in and the Pelicans are getting 1.5, I lean to that. I think they're the play there.
Now, here's one where I do agree with you here. I'm on the Pelicans as well, and I want to go back to Sacramento and ask you guys this question. Exercising the demon of knocking your big brother out, is there potential for a Kings letdown after finally, like Rex Ryan talked about this before in the NFL, and this is a one-game elimination. Did beating the Warriors, is that going to lead to almost a letdown, which sounds crazy to say, in this spot against the Pelicans team, who is not their rival, although they have lost to them every time this season?
One of two things. It's the letdown or it's the we did it, we're past. It's the Teddy Atlas championship mentality. Like champions automatically become 15% better when they win the strap because now the mind goes to another level. You're finally past the biggest obstacle of your career, and now you're free to do what you've been built to do. So I could see them coming out in this game not letting down. I think they got to be fired up about what just happened. Okay. And again, it was one game. If you had beat the Warriors in a 7-game series like last year, I could see them being flat in the next round.
All right, I'm gonna go with the Pelicans and say the positive regression for Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, where they know they have to carry the load because Zion is out. I think that's almost going to take some of the pressure off them. They're just going to get their shots up. If they go in, and likely more than what we saw last time out because they are good shooters, good players.
I'm on fire.